because I'm struggling to remember what happened at the end.
We drew.
Okay. Okay, then I'm glad you brought up this topic.
That's why I brought it up.
I have a question. I think Harshit, you mentioned balance on the board. Do you think we're going to have a result?
I think it's too early to say, obviously, but the structure that we have now definitely hints that we are going to see some sort of a big fight here, because knight to e2 definitely a slightly unorthodox move, because we generally expect the knight to go to f3. That's where the knight usually develops. But now the knight is going from e2 to g3 to potentially support the push of this pawn from e3 to e4, which would obviously give white this huge center.
और वो वहीं पे नहीं रुकने वाला ना, because the f pawn also goes forward f4. So Divya, who is actually quite an attacking player.
जब आप स्टॉक मार्केट सुनते हो तो आपके दिमाग में क्या आता है कि अकाउंट खोलने में बहुत पैसे लगेंगे या फिर प्रोसेस काफी
quite any result on this game, but this sort of an imbalanced opening promises an exciting middle game.
Absolutely. Black going for that pawn on c4, white going for the attack. It's going to be a fun game. I think we can safely say that a result can happen in this match.
Sahaj, I noticed that the three of you have got your dark glasses on the table here. All three of you have it. Like, is there a specific moment you plan to put it on? What's up with that? I wish somebody could see what's going on this table right now.
I think we're waiting for a brilliancy to happen.
First brilliancy, they're back on.
You need to shake yourself. It's too good to look at.
Too good.
By the way, do you think white will ever push Harry the h pawn down the board, h4, h5, just try to create an attack on the king side, or it's too much?
You mean Harshit the h pawn?
By the way, in terms of stats, white seems to have a pretty good record from this position. We have 17 games and a 59% win rate for white, 29% games in a draw, from 12% of black. So that means we have preparation so far. That's what's going on.
But why is she thinking now though? Because d6 and c5 were pretty natural moves, I would say. And maybe she was expecting e5 instead of c5, Harshit? Or what do you think? Why is she thinking now?
Border, I mean, border is such an important move, because you don't want to play quickly and mess up the move. Or she's taking her time to make sure she plays the best. By the way, the engine is a very, very small advantage to black, but this is where the element of practicality comes into preparation, because I'm sure she and her coach or her second sat down together, prepared this, and understood that even in the engine says that black is slightly better practically, it might be easier to play with white, which is why she chose this opening.
And one of the ways to explain that is that, well, engines can play perfectly and take advantage of those two double pawns on the C line. But then that human element that you're talking about comes in, where for white, the compensation of a destroyed pawn structure lies in activity on the king side. How are you going to handle that? And will you be accurate enough, precise enough? Never easy when there's a hot beaten board on the board.
Absolutely. And I think it all comes down to who's going to be more accurate, I think, in the next 5 moves. That's what's going to decide, I think, the fate of this game. So let's see. I mean, right now, Divya is thinking, which makes me slightly worried for her, because if you don't play accurately here, then things can really take a wrong turn here for Divya. But let's hope that doesn't happen. But one thing is for sure, she is going to lose that pawn on c4. She's going to have a double. She already has a double bishop advantage. But let's see what she goes for. It is a bit surprising to me that she's thinking this early on, though.
And it comes down to those two central plans we were talking about, right? Whether she was prepared for an early c5 or some other ideas. Because this is so committal as white, the line that Divya has chosen. After doubling those pawns on c-file, creating that weakness, you suddenly can't have a strategic approach in the position. You have to look for ways for activity on the other side.
I mean, if you look at Divya's eyes, it's clear she's trying to remember something and not think over the board right now.
Also, it's looking towards the king side.
Exactly. Also, I think like from her body language, she's definitely trying to remember her preparation more than she's trying to think over the board right now. So I'm sure she has looked at this. She's just trying to remember what she had checked. And if she's unable to remember it, then she'll go back in that thinking mode and be like, okay, I don't know what my preparation is. Let's freestyle and try to find the best.
I think there are two sort of moves in this position. There's d5 and then there is knight g3, right? If you play d5, then the black knight on b8 remains on b8. You cannot play knight c6 there. So that means the knight cannot come to c6, the knight cannot go to a5 where it sort of targets the c4 pawn. However, if you don't play d5, then black can play knight c6. So maybe what she's thinking is, should I play d5 and remove that knight, that possibility of giving up that pawn on c4, or should I play d5? Yeah, basically that's probably what she's thinking about here. Because d5 is also a committal move, right?
It's a very good point. I mean, because if you play d5, it also does allow black to play this move called e5, and then the bishop on c8 opens up. So there is obviously a trade-off that you get there. You get your central advance on the pawn, but you allow the black bishop to open up. I predict knight g3. I think it's more flexible. I think Divya will go for knight g3.
It really feels like the move you want to make, right? You also keep the center, as you said, options open, but you're also eyeing that h4 idea, or maybe just bishop to e2, develop your bishop, finish castle, then look at perhaps pushing the f pawn in the middle game. D5, the more she thinks, perhaps that's what's going on in her head. I mean, she hasn't. If you're very well prepared, is this where we start questioning that? Is this the moment, or do you think still in safe opening preparation territory?
It's the nerves, I think. Maybe it's also calming the nerves, right? Because she might remember some stuff going in. I don't need to make one mistake and you're out of the full double cell. Let me calm myself down. Maybe I want to go deep into my calculation. What options my opponent has? Just trying to remember everything. And she's 100% convinced of her.
So by the way, if you are in and around Goa, you can come and see the players playing live. There is a spectator zone inside the playing hall, so you can come to Goa and buy tickets on bookmyshow.com. You come and see the players playing live. I do see some spectators walking behind the room there.
And guys, while Divya is having a think, we've narrowed it down to closing the center with d5 or continuing with development. Should we check out some of the other games, some of the other action? Because some of the world's best players are here in Goa. Yes, day one, but we still have top grandmasters fighting it out. Sahil, where are you taking us?
I looked at SL's game, and apparently the G pawn has vanished off the board. Can someone explain? Is it like maybe it also has a buy today? What just happened there?
Wait, H pawn is missing for white.
Yeah. How did this happen?
This definitely happened as a trade on g4 is my prediction. Somewhere black went g5, g4, and those pawns got off the board.
So playing with the black pieces is one is Rasmus, German grandmaster, very very strong. He comes from a family of chess players. I think Frederick Swane is also one of the top grandmasters, also playing in this tournament. Swane playing with the black. So what's the crazy move? Can you show it?
Yeah.
G5
Wow.
on to G5. How can we explain this? The point is that if you take knight takes G5 instead of bishop takes rook to G8 would have been a concept at some point. Hitting the pawn on G2, which would be hanging if the knight moves. What a brilliant idea played by Swane in the whole thing.
Yeah, I think there might be. I think that's the game of SL, if I'm not mistaken. That game.
Yeah, SL.
I think that's the
I
game.
think we're getting it updated. I think we're
Yeah.
getting
Yeah,
the
yeah,
names updated on our screen. But regardless, crazy position. After this g4, what happened?
And you know this is prep. This is prep. You really want to avoid grabbing that pawn. Even if you think it's correct, your mind will tell you, okay, let's not do this. It's only 2 games to play it safe.
And I've worked with SL Narayanan in the past, he's a good friend of mine. He loves his dynamic positions. He loves to create imbalance on the board. And by playing g5, g4, he's saying, yes, I'm playing with the black pieces. And I know that it's a 2-game match, but if I win with the black pieces, the match is essentially over. Because then he just needs to make a draw with the white piece.
And he is a huge favorite on paper, more than 200 points rating gap. And you really want to capitalize on that. You don't want to let go of chances just based on the color. And he's created this massive imbalance already. What are the chances, Harshit, that we might see Black's king castle queenside very soon?
To be honest, I think that the black king is going to stay there.
In the center?
He's going to stay there in the center because it gives black so much flexibility. The black rook from the a8 can go to c8 and potentially put pressure on the bishop on c2. The black rook on h8 will come to g8, and suddenly the rooks on the edges of the board have found open files from themselves to a lot of damage on one.
So, the question is not कि SL का king कहाँ जाएगा, the
White
white
का
king.
कहाँ जाएगा?
And sometimes जब कोई नया idea लाते हो, तो if your opponent deviates a bit, you can get confused. And win d6 after a 2-minute think apparently was not the best play.
But it still looks like very much he's in prep phase. And I mean, right now the best move for white is d takes c5. And honestly, if I was playing as white here, that move would not occur to me. I would not play that. It's not a natural move to me. I would play d5 or something like this, just trying to keep my superiority in the center. And maybe that's what he's banking on.
I would also think twice before playing d5 because that does allow black to double down on that knight on f3, right? d5, the knight jumps to the center of the board, and you need to have a response to that.
Exactly. Because the knight on f3, we can show that after pawn to d5, the black knight will jump into e5. You cannot capture that knight on e5 because the queen on d1 is going to be on free there. By the way, after queen b6, Raj, I really liked your point that white is not wanting to take the pawn on c5 because in the opening stage of the game, what we have been told is the person who has good center is usually better. Here, it seems like with the pawns on c3, d4, e4, white has a very good center, and you don't want to break that central control by taking the pawn on c5. And I think this is what SL is banking on.
Exactly, and on top of that, we're also taught that if there is tension on the board, you shouldn't be the first one to resolve it ever. And d takes e5, the d4 pawn is the tension. You are breaking two rules of chess, right? First, you're giving up your central superiority. Second, you're breaking the tension yourself. That doesn't feel natural to me.
And that's a great point because queen b6 comes with a threat. Let's not forget, black is actually threatening to take the d4 pawn. It's hanging right now.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why, like you said, the top move is to resolve it with pawn takes pawn. It's not a human move to make, but it's what the engine suggests, or your other suggestion of pushing the d5 pawn. Because otherwise, how are you defending it? Bishop e3, queen takes pawn, right? You don't have the option to defend that pawn.
I think the idea is once you take on c5 and black takes back, you can play knight a3. A move even Magnus tried recently, I think, on the first move. So I think the idea is quite unique.
Wow, Sahil, wow. You just had to remind me on the first day itself. Wow.
Well done, Sahil, well done.
But still, I think it's definitely difficult, and white is right now calculating on the first
Okay,
move.
but we gotta tell everyone what this is about.
Yeah, I have no idea.
You don't know? So title Tuesday was Sahaj? Oh, you don't want to
I think I need to wear my sunglasses again, or I just.
Yeah, I think this is the moment you put on your glasses. So title Tuesday, Sahaj goes on to play at the first round. First round, he's matched up against Magnus. When Magnus plays knight to a3.
On the first
On the first move, because apparently on take, they were showing that this was the chat move that Magnus had to make that day. He had to play knight a3 and he decided to do it against Sahaj.
You see, I would believe that if it happened only once. This has not happened just once with Magnus. He has played knight a3 against me twice. And I have lost both of those games.
Did you not?
I feel somewhere
Magnus.
this is a bit intentional. I don't know. Somewhere when he played knight a3, I was thinking to myself, not again. Come on, I just came to play. And yeah.
But honestly, I think in the bigger picture, it's still awesome to have a fight. I was actually following that game, and I think you really put up a fight till a certain point.
Yeah, until move 6. Then it was all downhill from there. So thanks, Magnus.
So after queen b6.
So yeah, let's discuss the game. Queen b6, great move.
Also, guys, by the way, there are 24 Indians playing in this FIDE World Cup, right? 8 out of those 24 have got a first round bye and come into the arena from round 2. So you've got 16 players here. We've checked out Divya, we've checked out SL, both fiery games actually to start with. But I want to also point out that we've got other players fighting it out for whom this is such a massive opportunity, Harshit, and such a big platform to have this chance to play in this prestigious event.
I mean, you're actually just 8 rounds away from getting to the finals.
And the candidates.
And to the candidates. It's not just the 2 players playing in the finals, but also the person who gets the 3rd spot who qualifies for the candidates. As you said, 24 players playing amongst Indians, and we just need 3 of them to make it to the finals, and they're going to potentially be challenging Gukesh.
Yeah, and also let's point out, the big 3 are missing from Goa. There's no Magnus, no Hikaru, no Fabi. Which means that the field is wide open. This could be truly anyone's World Cup.
And also, when the field is wide open, you usually get a player we don't expect. We saw Abbasov qualify last time. We also saw Manchus Lubang do it in the Grand Swiss. So it's an opportunity, as you said, Tanya, for anybody to actually take a claim to that candidate spot.
But then now that you mentioned it, I think the knockout format of the World Cup is so special, and I think this is the reason why every top chess player loves playing here. I mean, Anish Giri has already qualified. Gukesh doesn't even need to play here, but they're all here. You know, Prague as well. He's already in the candidates. But they love playing the FIDE World Cup just simply because what an exciting event it is. It's the only top level over the board knockout event that we have. What's at stake is super high. And because of this knockout element, जहाँ पे one mistake, one bad day, and a top favorite gets out, it just is the reason why you have players like Abasov make a deep run, find themselves in candidates. You always have these Cinderella stories in these tournaments. We had Fedosiev in 2021 who made it to the semi-finals. He was a mid-seed. And I think that is the real element, the real storyline in a tournament like FIDE World Cup. Are these unexpected winners?
I mean, I think there's so much pressure playing in the World Cup, and as players, we love that pressure. Yes, it's very difficult in the moment, but we want this pressure during the game to be able to perform. Because when you have a lot of pressure, usually, like we get these surprises because top players are more prone to making mistakes when they are under a lot of pressure.
And also, let's not forget, those youngsters are now absolutely ready to take down the top players. Yeah, we saw Gukesh lose to a couple of youngsters in the Grand Swiss, so they're absolutely ready. For example, we saw, I think Gukesh also lost to a couple of them in the Grand Swiss, in fact. So they are ready, they want to qualify to the candidates, they are motivated. And for example, FIDE World Cup, a very, very strong youngster.
I think we should check him out.
Let's check out his game.
He's been so exciting to watch Sahaj over this last year.
I'm just happy that knight a3 is off the board. I saw that arrow was there for like the last 10 minutes and it was... But yes, by the way, you know, Edis Gurel, there's a good chance that if he qualifies to round 2 and round 3, he will play Gukesh in round 3, I believe. So,
and these two have a bit of history between them.
Yep, very recent history, I would say.
They met at the Grand Swiss.
They met at the Grand Swiss where Edis, the young talent from Turkey, was playing with the white pieces against Gukesh. It was a very tense game, but actually it was Edis who came out on top. Gukesh was having a tough event there, but Edis Gurel does have a better score against Gukesh recently, and I'm sure if they meet in round 3, Gukesh is not going to forget that. We all know how Gukesh likes to take revenge, and I'm sure he's awaiting that exciting match. But this game, who is he playing?
He's playing against Igor Efimov, a grandmaster from Poland. And the interesting thing is that whenever white goes for a setup like this, it is usually black who is thinking. Because white is doing all of these funky things with knight f3, e3, and delaying d4 for as long as you can. But if you look at the time, it is Efimov who has about 15 minutes left, which is a bit strange to me. So where exactly did his prep go wrong?
I would say it's just a youngster playing very quickly, Sahaj. When your opponent plays very quickly, you feel the pressure. And now d3 played, by the way, on the board.
Yeah, I mean, Efimov is trying to play something which Edis does not know, because the youngsters are very well prepared, and that's why he goes for this move b3. And I think what white wants to do is to go bishop b2, bishop e2, short castle, and just play very solid.
Yep.
I mean, at some point you're gonna throw d4, right? Or are you gonna go queen c2 and g4? I mean, we've all fallen victim to that setup at least once in our lives. Come on, let's be honest, guys. I mean, it is still possible.
And unfortunately, we don't have cameras, I think, on this board. But yeah, let's remind everyone it's Igor Efimov playing with the white pieces, and he's a grandmaster. He's 65 years old. He's playing against the Turkish super prodigy here, playing with the black pieces, the 16-year-old Edis Gurel, who's been so much in news. Huge favorite in this match. Almost a 300-point rating advantage to Edis in this one. And I think he wants to maximize his chances with the black pieces as well. This kind of an opening just signals, I want a game. You know, this is going to be a long fight.
Yeah, I mean, if black gets bishop b6, e5, e4, I mean, I'm a bit biased because I play this with
I want
black.
a quick game.
I think black is definitely very happy if he gets e5, e4, and gets to put his knight from d7 to e5. Exactly, and launch an attack.
Wow. You know, I would not be comfortable in this setup as black until white castles. Because that g4 is just hanging. And I have lost to... Lots to, it was
have all of that up on our screen very, very soon. I believe we've got cameras on the top 12 balls
Yeah.
here, Sahil.
Yeah, and you know what? We do have cameras for Divya, so we can do a quick check on
Let's go
Divya's
back.
game because she did play knight g3 after a 15.5-minute thing. So that's a deep one. And now knight c6 quickly played in 50 seconds by her opponent. And Divya is now again thinking.
And there we go. We have the names and we have the clock as well.
And we have the players.
And we have the
Most
players.
importantly.
Knight g3, but it is Kurkolos who has been playing very quickly, played knight c6, and Divya has thought for more than 15 minutes now.
It really makes me feel that this black's counter plan of c5, knight c6 was perhaps not the major opening preparation that Divya had in mind.
And I have a question. So, Sahaj and Harshit, so how does White come up with a plan here? Because we have a lot of imbalances. So, if Divya is thinking, what's her thought process right now?
For me, what comes to my mind is to play bishop d3, castles, and f4. Like, I would really love to get this plan in to try and, get a very strong center and potentially even get these 4 pawns on the 4th rank with c4, d4, e4, and f4.
Maybe Sahaj has a comment on the f4 move.
Yes, we have this running joke that the F pawn is the golden pawn and you should not try to touch it as much as, as little as you can. But I think in this case, it makes a lot of sense because you're doing it for dynamic purposes, because you want to create an attack. I think F4 is an inevitable move in a position like this, because if you keep the pawn on F2, then black is just going to, circle down on that C4 pawn and very soon just capture it because you just don't have enough defenders. So bishop D3, F4. The only thing I think that I would do differently from you, Harshit, is that I would not castle. I would just keep the king on E1 and just try to go F4, Rook A2, Rook F2, just save that extra move and just try to attack as quickly as possible.
I love that idea. Tanya, what do you think? Bishop d3, Rook a2. Do you like what Saj is cooking?
It's a very cool way, the rook left, to actually get that into the game and then try to push pawns. But the more Divya thinks in this position, there's already a big gap on the clock. I think you're also looking at other moves, right? Firstly, where do you want to place your bishop? Is it going to come to e2 or to d3? That's the first question. Do you want to push that h pawn or do you want to block the center? We can safely say that she's out of opening preparation because you don't spend this much amount of time if you're just recollecting things. So she has some decisions to make. Meanwhile, for Corculus, I think he wants to go b6, bishop a6, knight a5. There's one plan that black usually has in these positions, which is to target that c4 pawn. You want to get to that pawn as quickly as possible. So developing that bishop to a6, getting that knight to a5, and white has to be quick enough to counter these ideas.
You can argue that you can play bishop d3 and queen e2 and okay, 2 pieces are defending c4, but black has this hidden resource that you can put your rook on c8 and capture the pawn on d4 and you have another major piece targeting the c4 pawn. So that can be quite dangerous and you just don't have enough pieces on the queen side. So Divya would have to attack as fast as she can, but looking at her time, I feel like something has gone wrong. I'm not sure what it is though.
I think trust the process. I think she's trying, still trying to remember
What's the process?
She's
lay the process out for us.
She's trying to. That's the process here, and she understands what to do. Maybe she has a couple of plans prepared. Does she really want to play Rook A2? That's apparently one of the main moves here.
Oh wow!
And does she want to play Bishop E2, Bishop E3? As you mentioned, Tanya, all moves possible. So 3 potential ideas. Even E4 has been tried in this position. So maybe she's trying to recall her plan.
But Sahil, I feel that when you try to remember things and you don't remember it clearly during a match, it can be a very dangerous thing because you can misremember things. You can think, oh, in this position I was supposed to play this, but it can be a completely wrong idea, like altogether. So the fact that she's thinking so much in the previous move, she spent 15 minutes, and let's remind everyone, it's 90 plus 30, and there is a 30 minutes extra after move 40. So she doesn't have a lot of time, as she did in Grand Swiss. In Grand Swiss, it was a completely different time format. So here, I'm not sure if it is good for her.
Divya is a fighter. I saw her in Prague where she was playing against these grandmasters. She had such a difficult event. And then I asked her, Divya, I used how are you dealing with this psychologically? She said, no, I'm just so happy that I can play these strong players because this is what I want to do. I want to play against strong players so I can improve and one day become as strong as them so that I can beat them. And I think
Divya is definitely going to take this as a challenge to come up with an interesting fighting idea, because right now it feels like Stamats is very comfortable.
I'm really glad you brought up that tournament, because that was truly one of the events where it showed that mindset that Divya has, the champion's mindset, where she doesn't get bogged down by the score. She takes everything as a big learning thing and fights back right on the next round. I mean, that's exactly the
Great choices for the great you. Open your free Demat account with Angel One.
Investments in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related.
चाचू अब चार्ज देख रहे हो कि टेनिस?
पहले चार्ट, फिर ऑर्डर, फिर चार्ट, ऐसा ही होता है।
अरे ये सब आपके जमाने में होता होगा, आज के जमाने में ट्रेडिंग और एनालिसिस सीधे धन चार्ट पे होता है। ये देखो 100+ इंडिकेटर्स है और ऑर्डर्स सीधे चार्ट पे।
और मल्टी चार्ट्स,
धन चार्ट्स,
ऑप्शन चेन,
धन चार्ट्स,
ऑन पे ट्रेडिंग,
अरे धन चार्ट्स यार चाचू,
स्कैल्पिंग,
चाचू
धन चार्ट्स।
एग्जैक्टली।
अरे छोटे तो बड़ा हो गया।
आई नो।
तो फिर तेरी रिश्ते की बात करें।
चाचू इतना भी बड़ा नहीं हूं मैं।
धन चार्ट्स, जहां एनालिसिस और ऑर्डर एक ही प्लेटफॉर्म पे हो ताकि एक ट्रेडर कभी रुके नहीं।
धन है
तो डन है।
धन मेड फॉर ट्रेड।
Investments in the securities market are subject to market risk. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.
Than her playing chess for a longer period of time, and I'm sure he's going to try and win this match. Especially if he wins this game with the black pieces, Kurkulos becomes a big favorite to win this.
He is the third highest rated player from Greece currently.
Wow.
Has had a couple of good runs himself. He is on paper the higher rated in this tournament, and while opening so far, it looks like he's the one who's better prepared despite facing the surprise, or at least more familiar Sahaj with the position.